So my friend John put out a cartoon like a week ago, or it just went up on YouTube, so you can go watch it now. And I'll edit in footage of the video here. Uh, Called Ratbasterdz Episode 3, Straw Ducks, and I did some like visual effects work for the cartoon, and a friend of mine asked me how I did one of these effects, and I said, you know what, I should just do a video where I explain how this stuff is done. Uh, my contributions were all done in Flash, so it doesn't look exactly the same here as it does in the final thing for multiple reasons. One is that John did another pass and did his comping stuff after I did some of these goofy background effects. Uh, and then another reason is that Flash doesn't display it right. And then another reason is that it gets compressed when the video goes on YouTube. And so actually a lot of these effects totally destroyed the quality because it's just like so grainy and noisy. Uh, and Unfortunately, it's some of the best animation in the cartoon that gets like blurred out because of all these goofy effects going on. So, John, my apologies for that.
It's okay.
John's here, everybody. Um,
That's how we reveal that I'm here.
yeah,
Hi.
yeah, sure. We're just winging this, okay? This video is not super planned out, uh, but the story of how we decided to do all the goofy effects is I you were doing like the background stuff. You were doing
Yeah.
stuff with Sean, right? Like you were, and I'll like edit these in. Uh,
Yeah. So I'll, I guess I want to save a little bit of this just for the write up of the video, but the
sure.
long and short of it was
Go read John's write up. We can release these at the same time.
oh, there you go. Yeah. So the long and short of it was that I wanted to do something really visually distinct for this. I tried a couple different things, none of them were working, and then I was like, I thought it would be cool if like Sean had done these like really cool like textural canvas things, and I was like, it'd be cool to get him to do some of those kind of in the kind of color scheme that I'm thinking for this montage, and then we scan them in, and then I go into like Clip Studio and I cut out like aspects of them and then digitally paint over top of them, and I really had no idea how that was going to work, but
Yeah.
it came out really cool, and Marty saw him and then had
Yes.
his idea.
They were very cool looking, and I'll put some of these up on screen when I edit this together so that people can see them. Uh, which will also be good because they kind of get buried in the final cartoon. You know, both by all the stuff that I did on them, but also by like video compression and all of that. And these deserve to be seen. Uh, but so I saw those because you were like posting them in like the work Discord server, and then I was like, oh, John, what you should do. Like I just like was thinking about it, and it's like, well, if you have like all these layers that are making up this thing, then wouldn't it be cool if they were like parallaxing over each other and like you're doing some
Yeah.
like trippy motion effects? But I was like having a hard time explaining. I just like had some ideas, but they were like really visual ideas, and uh, in my inability to express a visual idea verbally, I was like, okay, you know what? Just give me one of these shots and I'll just like do some stuff on it. And it's actually this shot right here where the guys get zapped and then
Well,
the
we did the one of the guys coming through the window was the first one, and you just called me and we're like screen sharing, like just fucking around with that,
oh,
and
I
I
don't
was like,
even
oh
remember
wait,
that.
that's cool. We should try that. Yeah, you were like,
Okay.
we should kind of lean into it being like
I think
just
you know
like
what I
fucking
remember now.
crazy.
Yeah, so I was just like winging it, right?
You were drawing like on the side like schizoid scribbles where it's like the
Right,
guys getting
right.
stabbed and like
Which
kill kill kill.
that particular idea didn't really make it into the thing. There's an idea to like do more like, so in this shot there's like uh I made it do a weird thing where like the outlines kind of separate, and like there's like this like scribbly stuff on top of the stove here, and like in
Yeah, yeah.
in the actual or in my original idea of like, oh, here's something that you should do with like the backgrounds, was I was saying like you should like have like all these like manic scribblings like moving around the thing, and they would like say stuff like "die frogs die" or whatever. Their actual the actual thing I wanted to put in. I know what I want to say, but I can't say it for reasons that you probably you know what I'm talking about.
I don't, but
okay, good then.
Maybe that's better.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say I'm glad that you kind of like. I'm glad that part of that was retained, because the other day I was like, I think I was just like going through like old Ratbasterdz ideas, and I found from when we were first writing this one, like Patrick had sent me, I don't know who the artist was or something, but we were saying like it should have like, you know, fucking scary ass like schoolyard like notebook,
right, like something that you etch
like,
onto a desk, or
yes,
like,
yeah, of like, you know, a bunch of dead cops or something. Like,
yeah.
Like, I'm trying to think of like a specific artist I could point to that does that kind of thing, but like really leaning into it just being like totally like gritty and shitty looking.
Jonan Vasquez, maybe, like in the comics.
No, I was thinking like, I don't know, like I want to say like almost like a Johnny Ryan kind of thing, but like that's not like quite what I'm thinking.
Yeah, like everyone knows
like,
what we're talking about, right? Like is like the notebook of a kid who like drew swastikas on shit with like
something like that, with like a guy with a skeleton head with a shotgun or something.
Yeah. And it's like on his math homework.
Yeah,
that should have made it in. Is, you know, okay. And well, have like that's some math equations in there.
Well, one of my like millions of things I, you know, in kind of like thinking about what I want to write for the postmortem, I was like looking back at just all these things, and I'm like, damn, like there were so many ideas for this that like I wish I had like incarnated in some way, and that was one of them. I think it would have been cool. Or like Super Jail. Oh, is, like, not totally what I mean, but like that, which I did try and harness like a little bit of that at certain aspects, like kind of the longer takes of guys getting killed was kind of like a Super Jail homage. But
the cartoon is always much cooler in your head when you're talking about what you want it to be, even though I think it came out very good, John.
Well, thanks.
I'm gonna actually check and make sure that the recording is going okay. I'm gonna like stop and just listen back to what we have so far and make sure it's like mixed well and everything. And now I'm recording again. Hopefully I didn't forget to tweak something. Sorry that John's audio quality was bad, everyone. Now it's good.
Oh, what happened?
I had you really low in the mix, and so when I edit this later, I'm gonna have to turn you up, and everyone's gonna hear my fan noise really loud.
Oh, dang! Sorry.
No, I mean, well, that's my fault. I guess sorry to the viewers at home.
I can turn the.
Oh, don't mess with you. Right? I changed it on my end. It was all, I wasn't my desktop audio wasn't loud enough.
Gotcha.
So anyway, so that should be fixed. What were we talking about? I don't know, but now I'm gonna talk about
the cartoons always seem like they're gonna be cooler in your head.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like part of the challenge of making stuff is like, you want to save enough of like the cool part, or like you want to be working in a way where like you're still getting excited about stuff, like as you're coming to like the finishing touches or whatever. Or really it's the middle that's the hard part, right? Where like you're over the idea and you're not excited about the thing's gonna come out soon, and so you know you have to space stuff out to like manifest new energy into you. And I think, you know,
that's what this montage was.
Yeah, like part of what's yeah, go ahead.
To the point of you saying like it looks much cooler in your head, like I think the montage ended up being way cooler than I kind of anticipated it ever looking. Because I had like a vague approximation of like kind of what I wanted it to look like, but because everything I was trying with it like wasn't working, I really had no idea on how it was going to come together like at all. Literally up until we did it. And it was fucking crazy because it was like you had this idea for the comp like 2 weeks before the premiere. So it's like normally I feel like with stuff it's like I'll make it and I'll have like a little bit of time to like sit with it and be like, okay, like this is, you know, like it really like sinks in before you like share it, right? But with this one, it's like we did it and it was just like out there,
Yeah.
which was
Yeah.
like I didn't really even have time to think of it. It was just developing in real time into like something that I had no idea where it was going to go or what it was going to look like, and that was really cool. And I think it came together like way more unique and interesting than I ever had anticipated for it, which I think is very cool to see. It really did
Yeah.
totally revitalize like all the energy I had for the project.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's the whole trick, people, is you leave stuff vague and then you cross your fingers and hope that something is going to happen when it comes time to actually make the thing that makes you really excited about it again. Uh, and I'm just gonna pat myself on the back here for, you know, saving the
Yeah.
cartoon. Um, I'm kidding. It
Well,
was
I was the backgrounds had already gotten, because like the
Yeah,
backgrounds
I mean, well,
as
that's
we
what got
were
me excited, right? Is like I saw those backgrounds and I was like, "Oh, dude, you know what you could do with these."
yeah,
And
yeah.
the
Well, because
insight that I was trying to bring to the table here is just that like when they used to do stuff like this in like 90s cartoons or like in cell animation where they do like these really like grimy textural backgrounds like fucking Ren and Stimpy or whatever. Uh like that was cool because those guys were great artists. But like the thing that they couldn't do was like actually have those textures move. And you know, now that everything's digital, we can do that kind of stuff, but you know, you have to like know how to do it, and that's what this video is about, is how did we make the textures move. Um, it's actually some very simple tricks, and we're gonna show you how to do it, I guess. Did I step on something? You were gonna say something.
I don't remember.
Okay, perfect. So that's my segue. Uh, how did we do these wacky effects? Okay, well, um, for starters, here's like a super simple trick, okay? Is you have these streaky effects running by in the background. What is that? All this is just like one of the regular background textures, but just being like super stretched out. Um, way stretched out, I guess. Yeah, that's too big for me to even be able to scale it down. Let's see what background this is.
Oh yeah, it's
Was
that
this?
one.
Oh, this was the
Oh,
one
that's
from the
cool.
last shot, right? Um,
Yeah. Oh, that's neat.
and this is actually right side up. In this shot over here, we flipped this background upside down. Remember?
Oh
Like
yeah,
it was
yeah.
supposed to be black ground and then red
So the
sky and then
so the blood would read better, right?
right. Because all the blood is fucking shooting out of their heads, and then
Yeah.
uh, it works a lot better with the black background. Yeah. And it's also cool just to have a like this is a trippy, you know, fucking like this is like the first shot in the montage and already like the ground is fucking red and the sky is black. So like we jump right into like if the red sky wasn't insane enough, like
I love
it
a
just
red
immediately
sky.
turns super abstract. I love a red sky too, and fortunately there's still plenty of that. Um,
The with the one you were stretching out a minute ago, I remember when you were first showing me these seemed like really impenetrable to like figure out like how you even went about it. And then
oh
I was like
really?
just going in, yeah, and I
It's
was just
fucked up
going into the
now, so
flash
now it's not.
files and
Yeah.
like trying to figure it out to do the ones that I had to do. And one of the last ones, the one where he like the guy surrenders and he's like cool and then he just fucking fills him full of bullets anyway.
Yeah.
Um that one I ended up just doing what you're doing here, and it was cool because in After Effects you have all these like blending modes you can like apply to them. So I
Right.
forget what
Right.
I just like stacked a ton of effects on it and gave it this like transparent thing that made it look
Yeah. Yeah.
like blood was like running from the ceiling or something,
Yeah.
and
I
it
love doing
was
that.
it was
Uh,
cool.
I mean, Flash has like blending mode stuff too, and so that's how a lot of this is done.
I
But
forget it does.
you know, so here. Okay, so I want to also talk about like some fundamental principles of doing stuff, doing this kind of work where it's really, uh, you know, there's like a lot of creative exploration and a lot of like doing stuff without really knowing what you're doing and just like trying stuff to see if it works, and like what program you use kind of matters, because in Flash, if I want to stack a bunch of effects on a thing, then like I can't like render it and then like put more effects on that. So there's kind of like a ceiling to how many effects you can put on stuff before it starts to like slow the computer down and you like can't do, wacky effects anymore. But like if you're doing stuff in After Effects, I don't know if this applies to what you were doing, but you can like keep putting effects on stuff and then rendering it and then doing more effects and eventually it just like turns into
Yeah.
noise. But like there's no like performance cost for like you making the thing and like getting to visualize it as long as you can keep like rendering and then doing more effects. Um, Actually, the exact opposite is true of, well, hard to explain what the opposite of this means, but I'll try. So Flash is kind of like a low-tech solution that comes in handy sometimes, and then like After Effects is like the more professional way of going about comping stuff. Um,
I will
so
say I liked that a lot of the and I mean this just might come down to like taste, but I like that on certain ones because they're PNGs moving around in Flash, like when you export it, there's like a tiny bit of compression that comes along with it. But
hmm,
I kind of liked that
yeah. I mean, these are like
because
super like pixelated too, just because it
yeah
is
yeah
like
yeah
yeah, like all that stuff
yeah
kind of like if you're open to like the aesthetic of that, then it's actually, I don't know, it can be good if
I
you look
I
at it
liked
that
it
way.
because it added to the like noise of things and just like kind of the chaos a little bit, but it also like reminded me of because like kind of like what I was always shooting for with this montage was I loved like I can't think of a specific cartoon he did it with. I think it was maybe the Anus Boy trailer or something, but Necrotherium would always have uh his name is W-P-S on Newgrounds. He makes very cool stuff.
Yes, I
Um
second that. Go
he
check out
he yeah,
his life
one of
story.
the some of the coolest shit out there. But yeah, I remember I had seen the Anus Boy the movie. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I had seen the Anus Boy the movie teaser when it came out, and it had like these painted backgrounds, but they were done. Sorry, the audio's playing right now. But the way they moved around in Flash, there was like a level of compression to it that I think just made it look even cooler and scarier.
Yeah,
And that's kind
yeah,
of like what I was thinking of in the back of my mind with this.
yeah, yeah. I didn't even think of that, but yeah, that should have been an influence when I was doing this stuff because he's really he kind of pioneered a lot of. I mean, I don't know, like there's like a certain like approach that a lot of these like old head Flash guys had, where it's like Flash just had like a really strong immediacy of like throwing stuff on the screen and then like letting that emerge into your art project. This is very abstract, but a lot of the guys who like started with Flash and then like moved into doing stuff in After Effects or whatever other like more professional programs, they like took some of that attitude with them and they would use these crazy video effects really liberally to do all these like trippy collages made out of like different layers doing goofy blending modes on each other and like I I don't know, something similar happened with games like fucking like if you play like a Tom Fold Flash game, that has like a certain aesthetic, and then you like play like a Tom Fold console game, uh, that attitude of just being like, let's throw a shitting deer that like rockets off the screen from his own shit like that that all
Yeah,
like
yeah,
carries over into like the more professionally realized work, and that's just a very beautiful thing.
I
Um,
agree.
what was I saying before? Oh, okay. This is a really weird poll, but you know, so in video production, if you're using like a more low tech thing like Flash, then there's this ceiling to how many effects you can throw on stuff because it starts to slow down the computer. Whereas in like a more real workspace program software, you can stack effects infinitely. In audio production, it's actually the opposite, where like the more low tech thing, like Audacity, uh, it's super easy to just throw a million effects on something because it like bakes it into the video or into the audio just like instantly. Whereas like if you're if you're working in like Ableton or like a more legit thing, you have to like go through a couple of steps to like bake the audio and then apply more effects to it, and like it just makes you like not want to throw zillions of effects on audio. uh so like I don't know, man. The programs just like have a big influence on like what kind of approach you can take with exploratory work, right? Where they're either like biased towards doing like a more slow and calculated thing, or towards just throwing shit at the wall just over and over and over, and even if it's broken now, we're just gonna keep throwing more shit on it until it works. Like,
Something that I think is cool about that too is because like or I mean, how I've always kind of thought about like animation stuff is like, doing, you know, using the medium to its capabilities, right? Like there's no point in doing stuff that, I mean, not no point, but you know what I mean. Like
yeah,
I've always kind of looked at it from the perspective of like, why would you want to do something that could be done, just as easily in live action, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
in the way things move or like the way characters are designed or whatever, like utilizing the fact that it is a hand drawn thing that you have total control over the everything in it, right?
right, right,
Doing things that you can't do in live action, what or like cool compositions or whatever,
yeah,
um, or interesting colors like a red sky. But to that point, it's kind of interesting. I never thought about it until you were saying, or I like passed my mind when we were doing this montage, but like working with like having that same approach but with the program itself, like doing things that you can only do in a flash cartoon, right,
yeah,
versus
yeah.
any other program.
I mean, like even stuff like, okay, so we're just looking at like this effect of like the texture scrolling by, like doing this in Flash is not that hard because you can like to stretch a thing way out. Oh shit. You can like scale it down and then like zoom out and then like where's my gradient transform tool? And then you can like grab it here and then you can like see this whole rectangle. Uh, and like you're able to do that because Flash lets you do that. But like if you're doing stuff in After Effects and you think in your head, oh, I want this image file to be like way, way, way stretched out. I don't know. I haven't used After Effects in a while. You might just have to like pull like a slider. But like if the thing
There's
doesn't let you like zoom out enough to like do this, then like that actually adds like friction to doing these kinds of moves because I don't know, like you just like are biased towards like what the program wants you to do, and so you do it. But I think there is like a you can just like jerk a slider and then it like stretches way out, right? Or like you grab like a
um
number and then do the thing.
yeah, it doesn't have the gradient transform tool in the way that you're messing with it right now,
No, but
for
you like
sure.
could do this in After Effects, right? Where you like just
Yeah,
have an image that's way stretched out that goes by really
yeah, and then
fast.
have it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
Um
with like numbers, like you were saying.
yeah, yeah. I haven't used
Sorry, I'm
After
like,
Effects in like 10 years.
uh, yeah. I mean, yeah, it seems like you're doing all the stuff you need to do
You
within
can do
Flash.
everything in Flash, but you just need to know how to do it, kind of.
Yeah.
There's certainly one thing you can't do in Flash is like this effect where everything's getting like stretched out like this. You can't do it along diagonals. You can only do it on the X and Y axis, and that's why it looks like that in the final cartoon. Maybe I'll get into this effect next. So this is wait a minute. Let's just X everything out. Okay, so this is actually based off of the original background image for this shot, and then what's going on here is I'm just gonna turn these effects off one at a time. Oh, it's not that much. So first of all, it's just this giant blur. So here it is unblurred, and then we apply this. Oh, now they're linked, which they shouldn't be. Wait a minute. Unlink those. Okay, so it's just this blur along the Y-axis, and then we do these adjust colors. And Why is this not displaying?
I
Flash is so
straight up
shitty, dude.
I didn't know you could do that.
Here we
in
go.
Flash.
You don't know about filters?
No, I mean,
Oh, bro.
if I seeing the blur seems familiar.
Yeah, because people used to do
I
this
feel like
in like old Flash cartoons, right? Where
Yeah,
like,
I would do that with like movie clips or
yeah,
something.
yeah, they have to be
Oh,
movie
okay.
clips.
Wow. So
and
this is a
then-
movie. Okay.
Yeah. So you crank the blur way hard to like as high as it'll go, I think, is what I did. And then there's this adjust color thing you can do. Maybe I'm just going to turn all this off and reconstruct it myself. So you set up a blur, and then this like blurs the image, right? And then you do this, and then you can change the quality setting, and that'll give you like slightly different character of the blur. I went with high, but it really only matters once we get to this next part. Then there's this adjust color thing, and what that does is with the blur off, you can change the brightness and the contrast and all of the usual suspects. You can also change the color with the hue slider, which is cool.
Okay. Yeah. That's what I meant. I didn't know that there was the adjust color and all that.
Oh, yeah.
With movie clips.
You can do a lot with adjust color, and then you can also do a lot with color effect advanced. This is underrated, is jerking around with the advanced stuff. Like,
whoa.
Yeah, like you can do some damage here. This is an underrated feature. Anyway, so there's some of that in the cartoon as well. So you do your contrast thing, but you do it after the blur. So first it's the blur, then you turn up the contrast, and now you've got, you know, this effect, which is like vaguely reminiscent of like what the original image was, but it's like this cool streaky thing. And then to make it just a little harder, we actually do another adjust color because it's not quite high contrast enough for my liking. And then you get like kind of crispier edges here. And you'll notice that like the top and bottom of this effect like just like blurs out of existence, and that's just like a thing that you have to like deal with and like work around, which you can do by like making a, if you really need it to like extend infinitely or like extend so that it doesn't get like blurry on the edges, then you can like make copies of the thing, and then like now there's at least some detail down here instead of just getting like lost into this blur. But okay, so now we have these contrast effects applied to the blurred background, but if we change the blur, it changes what gets contrasted in and out of existence. And so this is like one of the crazy effects we do, right? Is like, it's going to be broken now because I changed which parameters are getting tweened. But like, we can change these parameters however we want, and then we can like do a motion tween here, and then all this stuff like blurs together and does, you know, it morphs from one set of parameters to another, and you're a little bit beholden to just like what emerges out of that. Like you only have, you know, so much control over like what the final output is like. And so in a lot of these effects, like it goes from like low detail to high detail because just to make the effect move, you need to do some amount of that. But, you know, you can keep fiddling around with stuff until it becomes, closer to the thing that you want to see. And
that's cool.
Yeah.
That specifically, this one was the one I was the most curious about how you did.
Yeah, I had another, I was actually going to show this off in another file, but I guess it's fine that I just did this here. Let me, which one is it? It's the one where the guy's face is melting. And now it's opening, and we're going to see when my computer starts to crash from all the stuff I have open and streaming and recording. My computer sucks. Dude, don't get a Dell XPS laptop. I gave Dell another chance. Do not give Dell another chance, man. They didn't get any better since you were fucking 10. body horror warning. If anyone hasn't seen the cartoon, you should really just watch the cartoon because massive spoilers, right? But yeah, so in this part, oh, it's really chugging, so I'm gonna have to
Yeah, this
X
one
out
there's a lot
of
going
this.
on because all the boils and water are all like PNG sequences, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, they're not. They're one PNG getting like morphed around.
Oh no, I meant the actual like effects animation for that part
Oh,
of like
yes,
the.
that is true. I forgot about that. uh, yeah, so this is that same kind of maneuver that we were just talking about, where like it's literally you just take the background and apply effects to it, and so it like looks like, what does that look like in the finished cartoon? In the finished thing, it looks like this, where these melty effects
So
start.
gross.
Yeah, I know. And then he also has like some
Chat.
watercolor texture over his head. I tried to only do stuff in the background for most of these just because it was like more of a hassle for like exporting for you. If
Yeah.
there was like stuff in the foreground that was like interplaying with the background and you still had to do like your comping on like individual foreground elements. Uh, but then this was one where it just like looked so much better if we just
Yeah.
like
No.
had this whole filter
Yeah.
over his face. And like this is so cheap and stupid too. This is literally just, let me see if I can find the actual, it's like I just like stole this off the some like dude on the internet. I didn't steal it. We were allowed to use these, but for some reason, once you start doing too many blending modes in Flash, it like starts picking the wrong one for stuff. So now I have to like make this into a symbol to make it display right. But here's the image that is just being probably ad filtered over the whole guy, and you just like move it around until it looks like it's correct for like where it is on his face or whatever. But yeah, that was cool. And the background does the thing I was just telling you about, where like, here's the other cool thing about like making this effect out of like cheap bitmap manipulation and not just like doing a bunch of like noise effects or particle effects or whatever, is that because all of this is like based on what the backgrounds actually are, it like looks like a moving background that's like very deliberate and like, whoa, that's a cool smear right there.
Yeah. Oh, his eyes like halfway off his head.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, what was I saying? Yeah, so like, here's kind of what I
Oh
was
shit.
talking about. We're
I
like, oh, you gotta go.
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I gotta go.
Um,
Thanks for having me in your video.
sure. I wish you could have stayed for the whole thing because this was kind of a good idea.
Damn.
But
Yeah, no, I wish as
John
well.
has to go
Well,
record Mo Marshall, so go be him
yeah,
now.
this was all very impromptu.
Yeah.
But thanks for having
Maybe
me.
I'll still
I
be
hope,
doing this in 3 hours, so if you're still around,
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
you can tune back
Okay,
in. But thank you for joining.
of course. Bye bye.
Goodbye, John. What was I just saying? This is gonna be harder without John here. But so now we have these background effects scrolling up, and like because it's like based on what the actual background thing was, and isn't just like arbitrary, weird lines being scribbled everywhere, or just like some kind of like, I don't know. I don't know what people use when they're doing this stuff for real in like a program that isn't Flash. But you would not think to do stuff in exactly this way, and it just has its own kind of like, it looks more intentional because it's like reusing the assets in creative ways as opposed to just I'm keep saying the same thing over and over, so I think you get the point, and I will just move on. So what else do I have to show you in these files? I don't know, the head goop exploding out is another just like stuff panning by really fast. Like this is, oh cool. It has to save all the files I have open for auto recovery because Flash can't trust itself to not crash. So this is the same thing. I think this is an AI generated texture. I didn't tell John about that. There's AI in this cartoon. But here's like another texture that's just being like way stretched out and doing like this extra layer of like blood stuff. What does it look like without that? Yeah, it's like, it's still good. I mean, these are great. This is great animation. I think this Mind Chamber did this stuff. And actually, it's kind of sad that a little bit of the animation gets eaten by just like how much stuff is happening on screen. And so I do apologize to the other contributors to John's cartoon for their work getting kind of buried in all this stuff. Yeah, reuse of the exact same effect that is going on here with the panning by background, except in this case, it's used to create this illusion of all this blood shooting out of his head when, like, if you go frame by frame and look at it in the final cartoon, like, it doesn't make sense at all. Like, there's, like, blood over here and, like, behind this guy from this dude getting shot in the head over here. But it's more about the visceral impact, you know. It's more of like an optical effect than it is like any kind of like realistic splattering of blood. We do this thing elsewhere where like a dude will be like running through the shot, and then like when a dude gets shot, it like generates another like big splatter effect on the background. Whoa, those are cool. Maybe I'll get into this shot next. I had like an order of which I wanted to explore all these different effects, but I'm just gonna keep winging it because I guess this video is going pretty well. And right now I'm like looking at a file explorer. If you ever try and like talk and like navigate files on your computer at the same time, it's actually kind of impossible. So give your Twitch streamers kind of a break. Now I'm waiting for a file to open. Okay, so here's this shot now. Here's what it looks like in Flash. And if these kinds of patterns look familiar to you, then maybe you saw a thing I did called artifacts. So how is this done? How is this wacky effect accomplished? Oh, this is a bitmap. I guess I did have to render it in some form, but I should have the original version of that effect is still in the file. Yeah, here it is back here. Let me copy this into a new file so that it doesn't have to run so slowly and I don't have to navigate this crazy folder hierarchy. John mentioned this briefly, but like all of this effect stuff was done in like the last like week before the cartoon came out, because this was like just like a super last minute idea, and dude, one of the busiest weeks of my life, like no joke, and I like got sick too, and like I don't know. I had like 3 assignments to do with like hard real world deadlines, and this was one of them, and I shouldn't have taken on so much work, but I don't know. It was kind of worth it in the end. I actually, there's some shots in the finished cartoon in Ratbasterdz that I wish I had spent more time on, or I wish I had more time to spend on them, but you know. You do what you can in this world, in this life. I was also like, traveling a whole lot at the same time, and so like where I could, I would get someone else to like drive the car so I could like work on my laptop and stuff. It was like my brother's birthday. He lives in Atlanta. We all went down to Atlanta to go see him. Anyway, so what's this kooky effect that you've been looking at, and how is this happening in Flash? Well, I'm gonna finally break it down for you all today to see it for the first time. It's three different things kind of that you can do with gradients in Flash that are kind of like we all know about like gradients in Flash probably. I call it Flash because it was still called Flash. This is Adobe Animate. Um, but I call it Flash because that's what it was for most of my existence. Um, so some stuff you can do with gradients that maybe not everyone knows about is, for one, if you're using your gradient transform tool, you can like drag this triangle around and it like does that. Do people know about this? Hopefully. Yeah, I mean, if you don't know about the gradient transform tool, you can like transform a gradient, and then you can reset it by double clicking. So that's like one cool thing you can do with gradients. Another cool thing you can do with gradients is you can shape tween them. So like if you do like a gradient here and then like another gradient here, and then you create shape tween, then it'll like morph between the two gradients, and that also plays ball with this, right? So like gradient's pointing over here and then it tweens over here, now it's pointing forward. Neato. You can change the shape too, and it'll do both of those at once. Very, very cool. There's one more thing that is super important but totally underutilized is the flow options up here. Do we know about these? When you click on them, they seem like they do nothing. But the reason they seem like they do nothing is because you just need to make the shape a little bigger, and whoa. Now what's this? Extend color makes it so that the gradient repeats itself. Let's make this smaller and do it a bunch of times so you can. So it like continues to repeat in this like concentric circle pattern, and then when you like move this around, whoa, we start to see that changing, and then that's like doing like a boomerang with the colors where it's like going from red to black, back to red, back to black. But then there's another setting which goes red to black and then immediately back to red to black to red to black. It looks like the Looney Tunes intro. And the other interesting thing about this is that there's like this weird like, I can't zoom in on it unless I like make it a bitmap and zoom in on that. So I'll just do this really quick. There's like this very pixelated edge, right? Like we get these crispy edges here from where like the I can't zoom in on it, from where the gradient wraps around and goes from black back to red, and that's just like an artifact of how the color of the gradient is being calculated per pixel. Is it just does that? It looks like that. It looks, you know, like you drew it in MS Paint, because it's like really fine, hard pixel edges. But, you know, that's like an interesting thing you can utilize for this final step where I'm going to combine all three of the things I just taught you, the shape tweens, the triangle man, and the flow settings. So here we have our stock gradient again. We're going to scale it down. We've got the flow on. And watch what happens when we move the gradient, the triangle I mean, all the way over to the right. As it goes farther and farther, it gets more and more dense until it starts to get really fucked up. And now we're starting to see like this other weird pattern emerge. Whoa. And now we start playing around with that, we get like all these crazy patterns like, what is this? What is this? And this is just like, where do these patterns come from? Well, it's like if you're just doing this math, it's like, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but it's like, if you know the wagon wheel effect, where like you're filming a wagon going by and it looks like the wagon wheel is going backwards because like each spoke of the wheel travels a certain amount, but then it like isn't capturing the in-between for each frame of the movie, so it looks like it's going backwards. Look that up if you don't know what that is. something like that is happening as it's like calculating what color everything should be for this gradient that is extending infinitely into space. And so you get these weird other patterns that look like they shouldn't be emerging. And then we can combine that with the shape tweens so that this can actually move in our finished product. I was really digging this, where like, what was that other one where it's like, it's kind of like more of a bowed look than like, yeah. I like how it's like, they're like radiating off of this. So let's try and shape tween that and see what that looks like. I mean, it'll look the same as just me moving it around in Flash, but we can like slow it down. Oh no, that looks crazy. Wow. Okay, I have no idea why it does that. But anyway, so that's how some of the wacky stuff was done in my short film called Artifacts, which you can go watch. Whoa. Something that makes this look a little more impactful is you just fuck with the gradient so that it's actually just like two colors instead of like showing like the range of colors between the black and the red. You just have the black and the red right next to each other. And I'll have to do that on the other one for that to read. So that's cool. Now it looks like that thing in Kid Pics where you like explode it with the dynamite. You can also make it like mostly black with only a little bit of red, and then you get like these like little fucking stars of constellations, whatever. And if you played a game I made called Dwarf Planet 1, we do some stuff like that in there. Yeah, and then you can like tween the stars, and then you get like this crazy like staticky effect. So all kinds of cool stuff you can do with this gradient manipulation. Where does this appear in Ratbasterdz? Well, okay, so we've got this crazy pattern, which is like built out of like the same effect. I think this is actually reused in a thing I did for another guy. That was one of the other assignments that I had to do at the same time as all this Ratbasterdz stuff. Whoa, that's a lot of effects that I put on this. I didn't realize it was that many even, but let's just go through them one at a time because it's actually pretty much the same effect I was showing you earlier, where you like blur the thing out and then you do adjust color to like re-up the contrast. So first it was this blur. Oops. Let's just X that out again. So first you do this blur, then we did adjust color to like make it more visible, like to make this like really high contrast. Whoa, when you zoom in and out, it like changes the pattern. I'm going to talk about that in a second. So then we do a bunch of adjust colors until the contrast makes it look like a fully black and white image instead of just like this very blurry, grainy thing. I mean, maybe this could be useful for something, but I don't know. So we do that sequence of effects, and then we just like do it again, I guess. So we blur it out again, and then we do the adjust colors again. And now we're like working in this territory. I think that we like blurred it in a different direction too. So like, yeah, the first blur is along the y-axis, and then the second blur is along the x-axis. And you know, we didn't do the cool tweening stuff with this, which maybe would have been nice for that to have a home somewhere. But we just used this pattern where like Deacon Duck shoots his gun and then the pattern appears. And I think, oh, I guess it really is just in black and white like that. But I thought what we did was we had it like blending mode over the thing. Wait, I guess we did it on some frames and not others. Yeah, so here it is with add blending, so that you only see like the white as if it were like its own masked out shape. If we set this to normal, and it actually is normal because Flash is broken. if we make this normal, here's what the effect actually looks like, but with add blending on it, you only see the whites. Let's see what some of these other things look like. That's weird. That's kind of cool, as you get a little bit hard light. I don't even know what hard light does. Like, I don't know how it calculates that, but there could have been uses. Difference is always, you know, this is the real fucking, like, wild card effect, because it almost never looks not like fucking around video art with the fucking inverting colors and stuff, but there's some different stuff in the cartoon somewhere, I'm pretty sure. You just have to be very careful with that, because, you know, then it starts to introduce like these weird palettes, like you know, you've got like cyan on red now, which it does look cool, but like, I don't know, you don't want to be like distracting. I mean, I think it is distracting anyway. There's like a too much that you kind of don't want to do, or at least I tried to avoid doing anything that looked really explicitly like you know, something that you would do in fucking iMovie. So that's that effect. And now you know how to make that yourself. What else? Oh, I was going to talk about something. Here's a more general point that I wanted to make at some point in this video, but I actually have to go pee. So I'm going to go pee first, and then I'm going to restart the recording. I'm back. I have unleashed my urine into some pipes, and now I may return. So as you'll see, zooming in and out on this pattern changes the effect, right? Like, depending on what scale zoom we're at here, like even if I just increase by like 1, the whole pattern changes. Like, it looks similar, but it's a different pattern, clearly, right? And what's up with that, right? Like, doesn't that make it hard to make stuff if you can't know what it looks like unless you're zoomed in to 100%? The answer is yes. Because then you can't, like, my screen that I use anyway is 1080p, so if we're exporting in 1080p, then I can't see the whole thing at the same time if I have all these you know, bars of other stuff open around it. And the way to get around that in this particular instance is that's why we make these into bitmaps, so that it can be consistent as you zoom in and out. But when you're just like working with this weird effect, well, you just get this bizarre behavior because you're doing a thing that's not really like an intended technique. And what's the deal with working with those, right? Like, doesn't that seem like you shouldn't be doing this then? If it's like so unpredictable and chaotic that like you can't even get it to like look the same at different scales. Well, first of all, I just want to talk about real quick about why that's happening. I mean, so I was telling you this stuff about how like there's the wagon wheel effect. I guess you either get that or you don't. But like, because of the way this gradient is being calculated, and because of the way we're like abusing, you know, like what's happening essentially is that like each loop of the gradient is like smaller than a pixel, so that like individual pixels will like roll over by some amount of gradient before picking whatever color they're supposed to be. Like, Flash is like rendering all this one pixel at a time and like deciding, okay, what is this pixel relative to like the center of the gradient, and then it does the funny math with some modulo operators or whatever, and then that's how you get the final output color for each pixel. And if it's smaller than a pixel, or like if the gradient is looping smaller than a pixel, then you get these weird patterns that just sort of naturally emerge from that math, similar to like how like fractals work, or maybe like the moire patterns you see in like screen doors and various panes of... Edit this out. Anyway, crazy moire patterns. How do they happen? I don't really know. But it's a thing, it's a force to reckon with. It's we don't have total control over what Flash is doing as we zoom in and out. So like, what's the deal? How do we use that to be anything useful? And there's kind of like a general principle here that I'm going to try to explain for the first time on microphone to the best of my ability. I've explained this to other people, but it's kind of a weird abstract concept, and so I'm just going to do my best to... I wish John was here, man, because that would make this so much easier. But it's something that I like to call high-level ingredients and low-level ingredients, and this is a term that I'm borrowing from programming. There's this idea in programming of there's like low-level languages and high-level languages, and so like a low-level language, it has nothing to do with skill level, because actually like if you're like high skill, then you actually tend to use more low-level stuff, and if you're low skill, then you'll use high-level stuff in the world of programming. What low-level and high-level means is low-level code, low-level programming languages are closer to manipulating straight-up zeros and ones, right? It's closer to what's called machine code, or assembly code, which is like one step above machine code. Essentially, as you get closer to machine code, it gets closer to just like inscrutable zeros and ones. And as you get higher up this chain of abstractions, you get closer to something that's like human readable, or like something that's like easier for humans to reason about, like doing like building block visual coding in something like Scratch. Do you guys know about programming? I don't know. But that's like a thing. And so borrowing that term from programming, in art, there's something I like to call low-level ingredients and high-level ingredients. And ingredient, of course, is, like a cooking term, but I use ingredients all the time when it comes to talking about doing this kind of exploratory, broad stroke type art. What does it mean for something to be a low-level ingredient? Well, in the culinary arts, a low-level ingredient, like low-level code, would be like working with the most basic building blocks. So it might be like stuff like water or like salt. It's hard to break down salt into anything more than salt. Whereas, if you had like a tomato or like, some kind of vegetable, that's like a higher level ingredient because it's like made out of a bunch of like different chemicals and compounds, and, it contains a bunch of different, fat and water and fiber and all these different macronutrients. But that's actually still, in the world of cooking, that's still kind of a lower level ingredient because, like there are people who cook with like Fritos, like if you're making like a Frito pie, or like there's like this guy David Chang who he's like a celebrity chef, but like he's a real big proponent of making stuff that tastes like cereal by like putting cereal in milk and then throwing away the cereal, and then you drink the milk and then that's cereal milk, and then he makes that into an ice cream or whatever. And so those are like high level ingredients, right? Those are like ingredients built out of ingredients built out of ingredients built out of ingredients, and you can like keep breaking it down into like finer and finer levels of granularity. And the thing that is generally true about working with high level ingredients, and this is a high level ingredient, right? Because it's something that's kind of like an abuse of a weird thing in Flash, and then you apply a bunch of effects to it. This is high level, right? In the same way that like Fritos are high level. The thing about high level ingredients is that you don't have great control over them. You are at the mercy of those ingredients, and you are at the mercy of the Frito-Lay company to not change their recipe too much, because then that'll completely fuck your Frito pie. You just have to accept that that's like how this shit works. And then what you get out of that ingredient being a high level ingredient is that it just like, it does a lot of legwork for you, right? So if you were making Frito pie, but you didn't want to make Fritos from scratch, you can just go out and buy them. You can't really change the Frito. You don't have very much control over what the Frito ingredient is. Not as much control as you would have if you were making the Fritos from scratch, which just seems like a lot of work that probably isn't worth it. And so you get that much for free, but you also just have to like deal with like the concession that you can't really change it too much, and that you just have to accept what it is and just appreciate it for what it is. And you know, that's kind of a good thing to be doing with your life anyway, is learning to appreciate things for what they are. I really believe this, actually, that this will make your art better if you can learn to work with high-level ingredients and learn to just appreciate things. So hopefully I explained that well. Actually, I don't know how much more I have to say in this video, because I think I covered most of the goofy effects stuff that I wanted to go over. Like, I kind of showed you all the main stuff that's going on in these Ratbasterdz shots, and from there you just kind of have to like figure out how the trick is done. Like if you just frame through the cartoon, I think we're gonna link to like a high def version of the cartoon that you can download, because like YouTube compresses it, and like even Newgrounds I think compresses the file in a way that eats some of the detail. But you know, if you want to figure out how this stuff is done, I think I've already explained all of it, and you'll just have to look through it for yourself and you know, come to your own conclusions about how we did whatever effect, because it's all right there. And maybe if I don't tell you everything, then that's actually better, because then you get to do learning in your own mind instead of me telling you how to do everything. Maybe I'll just watch. Here's all the shots that I wanted to go over. I'm just gonna make sure I talked about all the effects I wanted to talk about. Oh, this is weird. This is crazy. I can't believe that this is how it looks in the finished thing. Like, there's like very clearly like the edge of whatever this like splatter texture is being like, that's weird. I think I was going to talk about how like the steam here is actually just like, this is another watercolor texture that's just getting like tweened and blurred. And so you can see how that like reads as like a steamy thing going on. These clouds, John didn't give me those. I had to like rip those out of Pec 3 because I thought there should be some, sorry, not Pec 3, Pec 1. Pec 3 doesn't exist. I had to rip those out of Pec 1 because I just thought that it would look better with some clouds in the sky. And when I went to get these out of the file for Pec 1, I noticed that there's actually a background in that cartoon that doesn't get used because I screwed up. And so there's two shots in a row that actually have exactly the same background. And I never noticed this in all the years of this cartoon being out. And when I went back into the original file to get those clouds, I was like, oh, there's another background in here. This part, I really actually don't like these streaky lines back here. I used this in a couple of different places on the cartoon, but I kind of don't like how it worked in this shot. And I was gonna delete it, but I think I had like already sent it to John, and I was like, oops, I forgot to take that out. And so now that's in the cartoon. I think I changed, I had to move some stuff around in this shot. Like I had to actually change the animation so that it still read well against all these crazy effects going on. And in fact, the effects in this shot aren't that crazy compared to some of the other ones, just because like if the animation was really pulling a lot of weight, then you like don't want to like do too much to like cover up how nice the animation is. But I actually changed the animation a little bit because I think this guy like fell down in a different way. Like the way he kind of like stops in place and then like falls down in like this arcing motion. It looked different in the original thing. I forget what exactly was different about it. But I don't know. Stuff didn't read as well unless I was like fucking around with where everything was placed on screen. You know what? This is a cool effect. So I'll just this is what shot is this? I'm just gonna open this up, and this will be the finale. So there's an effect going on back here. Oh god, this file is so slow. Holy shit. Okay, maybe I shouldn't be messing around in here. I drank a coffee before I did this. I don't like to drink caffeine because I actually get like anxious. But I always feel like I'm not like talking fast enough or something if I don't chug a coffee before I do one of these. If I knew John was going to be here for this, because I was originally going to record this whole video solo, then I probably would not have felt the need to drink the coffee, and that probably would have made this video better. But that's okay. If you're still listening to this part, then Jesus, this is still loading? Like, this is crazy. Okay, maybe I'll just skip doing this file. But, oh. Are we back? Is it going to make me do that again? Nope. Maybe it's just like auto-saving and not showing a prompt. But here's a funny thing that happened on this shot is I do this more intensely in a different shot. Oh, there it goes again. But we have this long background that's panning by, but to make it look like the background is panning faster, there's like another layer of like streaky stuff running by. Not the hand-drawn lines, but like these like black areas that are like erasing the background. And that's the same thing that we were showing at the beginning and throughout this video, where you like take the background, I think it's like stretched out, and then we applied the blur and contrast thing to turn it into like a bunch of black streaks. It has some kind of blending mode set to it so that you only see these black lines. And so you have the stretched out version with all the effects on it, also tweening by at the same time as the regular background. And this is just going so slow. It's probably, yeah, it's not even going to let me do stuff. But it's panning by faster than the background, and that makes it seem like the whole background is going by faster. The background art is going by relatively slowly because it has to be a really long background for it to pan by super fast. And there's actually a shot like this in the original Ratbasterdz in the first episode, where it's like panning by like a bunch of like cords and cables and stuff, and we just drew like a super huge background. I wish I knew who drew that background. I don't remember. But props to them, because they had to draw this giant panorama spread just so it can like zoom by in 1 second. And that was like the only way we could think to do that and have it have the right impact, was to just do this super long drawing. But then for this cartoon, I figured out we could do this thing where the background actually goes by at a slower rate, but then we have this layer in front of it that's going by way faster. And so the zoomy lines go by fast, and the background goes by a little bit slower, but the end effect is that it looks like the whole background is going by super fast. And I'm going to try one more time to pan through this. Ah, yes, now we can see it, finally. You know, at a snail's pace, it's kind of hard to see the thing I was just talking about. But those two things parallaxing together create this cool effect where it seems like the world is zipping by. So that's the technical breakdown of some of the shots in this cartoon, some of the comp stuff I did, with some extra musings about the nature of doing kind of seat of the pants style, unplanned, unpredictable big broad strokes type work. There is kind of like a mindset you have to adopt to really pull this stuff off effectively, and it takes a lot of like leaps of faith and just like believing that it will come together in an interesting way, and then just like maintaining your own enthusiasm levels by like leaving hard decisions for later, and like instead of just like having an idea in your head and then like just trying to do like a faithful recreation of the thing that you're picturing. There's a lot of fun to be had in just leaving the image in your head a little bit vague, such that making it interesting and making it exciting is always a question of like, what are the new experimental things that we can inject into what we're doing, and like, I don't know, just being like open to like what different kinds of stuff looks like. Being open to, it's about being open. I don't know. You ever watch any movies by Matt Johnson? I really don't know how to end this, so I'm just gonna turn it off now. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.